Hi guys, it's Matthias, and yes, it's time for that video that you have been asking for a long time. Flying in Battlefield 6, which is in some regards similar to other Battlefield games, even Battlefield 1, but in many aspects it is completely unique. Now, just like in Battlefield 1, you want to set your spacebar to pitch up, or whatever other key is comfortable for you. Find whatever key binding works for you when it comes to flares, which is utility 3. This is very confusing by just looking at the menu because it doesn't tell you what utility 3 or utility 4 actually does. You just have to figure that out on your own or by watching a tutorial such as this. Now, the air-to-ground lock-on can be used in a variety of different ways, but the easiest and most basic way to do it is what you see me doing here. I'm coming in from behind and above, locking on to the target, which starts right there. And the moment the rocket is launched, I switch to the guns in order to deal as much damage as possible. I could have also dropped the air-to-ground bombs there, but there was no need for it in that particular case. And yes, the air-to-ground bombs are also quite poorly described. That is actually utility 4. It's also important that you have a free look key binding, and for me I used to have it actually on mouse 3, but that doesn't work for me in Battlefield 6. Instead I have to switch it to V on the keyboard, and that's because I need to be able to lock on and fire the rocket while free looking, and I technically could do it while having the free look on mouse 3, just have to use another finger for it, but since I always used the first finger in order to free look, that's the same finger as the trigger finger, and yes, muscle memory have a tendency to always kick in, so I decided to switch it up and I use V on the keyboard instead, and so far it's been working. Yeah, let's just say sometimes it works. So yes, you want to know when to use the flares in a good situation. In this case I waited a bit because I wanted to put a little bit of distance between me and the enemies before I used the flares so that they couldn't lock onto me right away again. I use it a lot earlier if I know I can get behind cover right after using the flares. That way, obviously, I get them back faster. Now, air to ground was actually surprisingly complicated coming from Battlefield 1, and that is partly because of the actual air to ground bombs than how you drop them, but also when using the gun. The most complicated thing about this is that the spotting mechanics is very different in Battlefield 6 compared to Battlefield 1. The actual triangle that you have above a spotted enemy is quite further away or higher above than I'm used to, meaning that right then and there in the heat of the moment I kind of fall into bad habits or old habits and I tend to shoot above the target, so keep that in mind if you have a similar background as me. So yes, I am going to show you the settings here in just a moment. Now, the one thing that I want to talk about first is again the lock-on mechanics of the attack jet. Now this, along with a lot of other things, is what you want to practice in some of these custom servers in order to build up the proper muscle memory, because you can actually lock on to targets while flying away from it. You actually shoot a tank that is straight behind you, and you see me doing this in just a moment here. Now this target, I shouldn't have gone for this particular vehicle. He is way too close to the enemy spawn and therefore can get spawn protection or the missile interception system, something like that. So here I switch to the air to ground lock-ons. I have to flare myself. Eventually the missile locks on, I fire, and I keep flying away from the target. If you're not used to it, takes a little bit of practice, takes a little getting used to, but it's well worth your time if you like flying these attack jets. Alright, so first thing you want to do is go to mouse and keyboard, if you're playing on mouse and keyboard that is. Go to aircraft pilot key bindings. This is where it is very important that you have the key bindings that fits you. I have switched to exit vehicle, the exit vehicle to U. It's a key binding that I've had for years in other games as well, and it's because I don't want to accidentally bail out of the plane because I'm misclicking. And chase camera, that's for me, that's T for me. It just fits better with my fingers. I don't know about you, but that's what I've done to it. And then we have this one, pitch up. Without this, you're not going to be able to make any of the moves that you see in my video or any of my streams. I don't know if there is another key that other pilots, generally use. Space is, to my knowledge, the one used by at least 99% of it, or PC players, unless they're using a joystick. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Free look. This was a little bit tricky for me to get used to. I normally have a mouse 3. I unbounded that one because if I have it on mouse 3, I use my first finger, then I don't have a finger for, for firing. So I gotta get used to, in this case, pressing V for free look. Still trying to get used to it. This is, old habits die hard type thing, which I'm struggling with, but we're getting there. We're getting there. Now, here is the thing that was the most complicated. Activate equipment slot 1 and activate equipment slot 2. Like, why they can't be more clear about what these equipment slots actually does, I don't know. But since you see it's mouse 4 here, that means that I have one way or another figured out that this is flares, because I always flare with my thumb on my mouse, and then equipment slot 4, this is by default 3. I just put it on 4 so that there's like a gap there so that 3 isn't bound, and I had to unbind any other key for flares so I don't press it by mistake. So those are some of the most important key bindings so far, and that's in the aircraft pilot mapping. Also worth knowing about the attack jet is that when you switch to the air-to-ground lock-on missile, if you right-click, you get this free look, and the plane automatically flattens out and flies straight forward in order not to crash. So it goes into some kind of autopilot for a brief moment until you take control of it again by releasing your right mouse button. Now, I normally don't do that because that requires me to go for an extra strafe in order to drop these air-to-ground bombs, which is a little tricky to aim with, I gotta say. I was kind of frustrated with them for a week or two in the beginning. But going back to the lock-ons, let me show you my first attempt to try to explain this when I just discovered it a few weeks back. I'm flying straight down. Oh no, I can't do it now. So I gotta go for this guy. It was painted so I could use the lock-on. Lame, I know, but I did it anyway.
I mean, they would do the same to you, so...
Yeah. So... It just flies straight. It like you can... If you say... Okay, how do I explain this? So you switch to this weapon, the lock-on weapon. And you can make like a dive bomb. You dive straight towards it. If you aim down sight and you go into like this, you aim at him. But see, you're flying straight now again. So yeah, as much as you can use the lock-ons that way, I prefer to do it this way, where I first lock on to the tank. Once the missile is fired, I switch to the gun, and then I quickly drop the bombs, and hopefully that's going to be enough. So I also want to let you know that most of my jet videos are going to be on my main channel, where I also do my live streams. There's a link in the description, of course. I also do fly the stealth jet as well, so we'll be covering that also in a future video. And with just a few seconds left, I want to say big thanks for watching. Haha, roadkill the guy with the jets.